The rain had been falling for 3 hours straight when the back door of her Honda opened, and a voice she had spent 8 years trying to forget said good evening without looking up from his phone. Nora Sinclair's hands tightened on the steering wheel until her knuckles went white. Her heart slammed against her ribs so hard she was certain he could hear it from the backseat. She forced herself to breathe. Forced herself to pull the car into traffic. Forced herself to become invisible in the way she had learned to become invisible during 7 years of driving strangers through city streets. The Four Seasons, he said, still absorbed in whatever demanded his attention on that glowing screen. The downtown location. His voice had not changed. Deeper perhaps. More certain of itself. But the same voice that had once told her she was the most brilliant woman he had ever known. The same voice that had promised her a future and then vanished into silence so complete it nearly destroyed her. She adjusted her rearview mirror, angling it so she could see him without turning around. Bennett Aldrich, co-founder and CEO of Aldrich Medical Systems. His face had been on the cover of 3 magazines in the past year alone. Silver threaded through his dark hair now, distinguished rather than aging. His jaw still sharp. His presence still commanding even in the backseat of a rideshare car that had seen better days. He had not recognized her. Of course he had not. She was 50 pounds heavier than she had been at 27. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail instead of falling in waves around her shoulders. She wore thick-framed glasses for night driving and no makeup because she had stopped wearing makeup years ago when she realized there was no one left to notice. She was not the woman he remembered. She was not sure that woman existed anymore. 14 minutes to your destination, she said, keeping her voice neutral. Traffic is moderate. Should be a smooth ride. He made a sound of acknowledgement without looking up. Nora focused on the rain-slicked streets, on the red taillights blurring ahead of her, on anything except the man in her backseat. She had imagined this moment 1,000 times. She had rehearsed speeches of fury and accusation. She had practiced the cold dismissal she would deliver when he finally understood what he had done. None of those rehearsals had prepared her for the reality of him sitting 3 feet behind her, oblivious to who she was. Welcome back to another powerful story, my beloved listeners. Kindly tell me where you are watching from and what time it is where you are at. If you are new here, prepare for a story of betrayal, unexpected love, and what truly makes a family. Drop everything and listen closely. This tale of heartbreak and redemption might just change how you view love and family forever. The phone call ended and Bennett Aldrich set his device aside with a sigh that seemed to carry the weight of 100 board meetings. Nora watched in the mirror as he leaned his head back against the seat and closed his eyes. For a moment he looked tired. Human. Not the corporate titan whose net worth was measured in billions, but simply a man at the end of a long day. She hated that she noticed. She hated that some part of her still catalogued the details of him like precious information to be stored away. The silence stretched between them, filled only by the rhythm of rain on the windshield and the distant hum of other cars. Then his eyes opened and found hers in the rearview mirror. "I apologize," he said, sitting up straighter. "I have been rude. Terrible day and I am taking it out on everyone around me." She said nothing. What was there to say? He studied her reflection with more attention now. Something flickered across his face. Recognition trying to surface through layers of time and change. "Have we met before?" he asked. "There is something familiar about you." "I do not think so, sir." She kept her voice steady. "Just one of those faces." "No." He leaned forward slightly, narrowing the distance between them. "No, I know you. I am certain of it. Your voice. Something about the way you hold yourself." Nora's pulse quickened, but she maintained her composure. 8 years of raising 2 children alone had taught her how to remain calm in crisis. How to function when everything inside her was screaming. "You are mistaken," she said. "We are about 10 minutes from your hotel. Take off your glasses." The command came so naturally to him. The voice of a man accustomed to being obeyed. She should have refused. Should have maintained the distance. But something in her wanted him to see. Wanted him to know what he had left behind. She removed the thick frames and glanced at the mirror, letting him see her face fully for the first time. The recognition crashed through him like a physical blow. She watched his expression transform from curiosity to shock to something that looked almost like pain. "Nora." His voice was barely above a whisper. "Nora Sinclair. Good evening, Mr. Aldrich." She replaced her glasses and returned her attention to the road. Your destination is approximately 8 minutes away. What the? He stopped himself, regrouped, tried again. What are you doing driving for a rideshare company? You were a biomedical engineer. You were brilliant. You were. Things change, she interrupted. Life happens. But I do not understand. You had such a promising career. The diagnostic work you were doing was revolutionary. Was it? She asked, and the bitterness crept into her voice despite her best efforts to contain it. I would not know. I left that world a long time ago. Why? That is not really your concern. Bennett was silent for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice had changed. Softer now. Almost tentative. Nora. What happened to us? I never understood why you stopped responding to my messages. Why you cut off all contact. I thought we had something real and then you just vanished. She almost laughed. Almost. But the sound that escaped her was closer to a cough of disbelief. I vanished, she repeated. That is the story you have told yourself. It is what happened. I wrote to you. I called. For months I tried to reach you and you never responded. And then I heard through mutual friends that you had moved on. That you did not want to hear from me again. Nora pulled the car to a stop at a red light and turned to look at him directly for the first time. Really look at him. He appeared genuinely confused. Genuinely wounded. Either he was the greatest actor she had ever encountered or he truly believed what he was saying. Is that what you heard? She asked quietly. That I moved on. Yes. And you believed it. Without question. I did not want to believe it. But what else could I think? You would not take my calls. You would not answer my letters. I flew to Munich. The words fell between them like stones into still water. She watched the confusion deepen in his eyes. What? I flew to Munich, she repeated. I scraped together every penny I had and bought a plane ticket to see you in person. Because you were not answering my calls either. Because your emails had stopped. Because I had something important to tell you and I needed to say it face to face. Bennett shook his head slowly. That is not possible. I would have known if you came to Munich. My assistant would have told me. Your assistant told me I was not welcome. Your chief of staff had security escort me from the building. And a week later I received a very official-looking letter on your company letterhead informing me that any further attempts at contact would be met with legal action. The light changed. Nora turned back to the road and began driving again, leaving Bennett in stunned silence behind her. I never sent any such letter, he said finally. I never authorized any restraining order or legal threat. Nora, I swear to you, I had no idea you came to Munich. I never knew. Someone knew. Someone made very certain that I would never reach you again. The silence that followed was different now. Heavier. Charged with questions neither of them could yet answer. You said you had something important to tell me, Bennett said slowly. Something you needed to say in person. What was it? Nora had not meant to say it. Had not meant to reveal anything. But 8 years of anger and grief and exhaustion had worn away her filters. The words escaped before she could stop them. I was pregnant. The car seemed to shrink around them. The rain seemed louder. Everything seemed to narrow to this single devastating moment. You were. His voice broke on the words. Pregnant. Twins, Nora said. I was carrying twins when I flew to Munich to tell you. When I was thrown out of your building and threatened with legal action for harassment. Twins. A boy and a girl. They are 7 years old now. They have your eyes. Your curiosity. Your stubbornness. Bennett made a sound that was not quite a word. She risked a glance in the mirror and saw him bent forward, his head in his hands, his shoulders shaking. I have children, he whispered. I have children and I never knew. You have biological offspring, Nora corrected, her voice hard now. Having children requires more than genetics. It requires showing up. Being there for the fevers at 2 in the morning. Holding them when they cry. Teaching them to read. Watching them grow. You have not done any of those things. You do not get to claim them now. But I did not know. Nora, you have to believe me. I never knew. She pulled the car to the curb outside the gleaming entrance of the Four Seasons Hotel. Valets in pristine uniforms waited under an awning, ready to attend to the wealthy guests who frequented this establishment. We have arrived at your destination, Mr. Aldrich. Nora, please. We need to talk about this. I need to understand what happened. There is nothing more to discuss. You have a hotel to check into. I have other rides waiting. He did not move. She could feel his gaze on the back of her head, the weight of his shock and confusion pressing against her like a physical force. I want to meet them, he said. My children. I want to know them. That is not going to happen. They are my children too. Biology does not make you a father, she said, finally turning to face him. Showing up does. Being present does. You have been absent for 7 years. You do not get to walk back into their lives because you suddenly feel curious. You have not earned that right. Then let me earn it. Please. Something in his voice cracked. Some part of the corporate armor fell away. For a moment he was not Bennett Aldrich, Billionaire CEO. He was just a man who had discovered that his entire understanding of the past was built on lies he did not even know existed. Nora looked away. She could not afford to feel sympathy for him. Could not afford to let his pain move her. She had built walls for a reason. Those walls had kept her alive. Please get out of my car, she said quietly. He hesitated, then reached into his pocket and withdrew a card. Plain white. Expensive paper. His name and a phone number. Nothing else. This is my personal line, he said, placing it on the console between the front seats. No assistants. No gatekeepers. Just me. Please, Nora. Call me when you are ready to talk. I need to understand what happened. And I need to know my children. She did not touch the card. Did not acknowledge it. Simply stared straight ahead until he finally opened the door and stepped out into the rain. He paused before closing the door. Looked at her one last time. I am sorry, he said, for whatever role I played in this. For whatever I failed to do. I am so sorry. Then he was gone, disappearing through the hotel's gleaming doors into a world of luxury and privilege that Nora had once thought might be hers. She sat motionless for a long moment. Then she pulled away from the curb and drove exactly 3 blocks before pulling into an empty parking lot. She put the car in park, turned off the engine, and finally allowed herself to fall apart. The tears came silently at first, then in great racking sobs that shook her entire body. 8 years. 8 years of struggling alone. Of working 2 jobs to keep food on the table. Of watching other children with their fathers and knowing her own would never have that. Of mourning not just the man she had loved but the future they had planned together. And now he sat in a luxury hotel room, processing the existence of children he had never known about, while she sat in a parking lot in a car with 187,000 miles on it, trying to pull herself together enough to accept the next ride request because she could not afford to take the night off. Her phone chimed. Another passenger waiting. Nora wiped her eyes, took a shaky breath, and pulled back into traffic. She had learned long ago that life did not pause for personal catastrophe. That survival required forward motion even when every part of you wanted to stop. She had 2 children depending on her. 2 children who needed new shoes and orthodontist appointments and school supplies. 2 children who had never known their father and might now be forced to confront his sudden appearance in their lives. The drive home that night was a blur. She completed 3 more rides on autopilot, maintaining the polite professional demeanor that earned her good ratings while her mind raced through the implications of what had happened. By the time she pulled into the parking lot of her apartment complex, it was nearly midnight. The building was modest. Working class. The kind of place where neighbors knew each other's names and kept an eye on each other's children. It was nothing like the life she had once imagined for herself, but it was home. It was hers. Dorothy Reeves was waiting in Nora's apartment, a paperback novel on her lap and a cup of tea growing cold on the side table. At 68, Dorothy had become more than a neighbor. She was the closest thing to family Nora had left in the world. Surrogate grandmother to the twins. Trusted confidant. The steady presence that had helped Nora survive the hardest years. You are home late, Dorothy observed, setting aside her book. Good tips. Average, Nora said, hanging her jacket on the hook by the door. The twins okay? Perfect angels as always. They finished their homework. We read 2 chapters of their book. They were asleep by 9. Dorothy studied Nora's face with the careful attention of someone who had known her for 7 years. The older woman's expression shifted from casual to concerned. "What happened?" she asked. "You look like you have seen a ghost." Nora sank onto the couch beside her friend, suddenly exhausted beyond words. "Bennett Aldrich was my passenger tonight." The silence that followed was heavy with understanding. Dorothy knew the name, knew the story, knew everything Nora had endured because of the man who bore it. "The twins' father," Dorothy said quietly. "The one who—" "Yes, him." Dorothy reached over and took Nora's hand. "Did he recognize you?" "Eventually. After I took off my glasses. And I told him about the children." Dorothy's eyebrows rose. "You told him?" It slipped out. Nora pressed her free hand to her forehead. 8 years of carefully planned speeches, 8 years of imagining what I would say if I ever saw him again, and the moment actually comes, I blurt out the truth like some kind of idiot. How did he react? Shocked. Confused. Then that thing he does when he decides he wants something. That focused determination that made him a billionaire. He wants to meet them. Yes. And how do you feel about that? Nora considered the question seriously. She owed Dorothy honesty. The woman had earned it through years of unwavering support. Terrified, she admitted. "The twins have a good life. It is not the life I planned for them, but it is stable. They are happy. They are loved. What if he comes in and disrupts everything? What if he makes promises he cannot keep and then disappears again when something more important comes along? Or," Dorothy suggested gently, "what if he genuinely wants to be part of their lives? What if Willa and Oliver could have their father after all?" "You do not know him like I do," Nora said darkly. "Bennett Aldrich is brilliant, charismatic, and completely focused on his goals. 8 years ago that goal was building his company into a global empire. I was important to him until I was not. Until I became an obstacle to his ambitions." "People change," Dorothy pointed out. 8 years is a long time. Not that long. And billionaire tech CEOs are not exactly known for their emotional growth and stability. Dorothy was quiet for a moment, her thumb tracing circles on Nora's hand. "He said something strange though," Nora continued. "He claims he never received my messages about the pregnancy. Claims he never authorized any legal action against me. Claims he had no idea I came to Munich. Do you believe him?" "I do not know what to believe anymore." Dorothy reached for her phone on the side table and handed it to Nora. "Perhaps it is time to do some research on your ex. See what he has been up to besides making money." Reluctantly, Nora took the phone and typed Bennett's name into the search bar. The results were immediate and overwhelming. News articles about Aldrich Medical Systems' latest innovations. Financial analyses of the company's exponential growth. Profiles of the tech visionary who had revolutionized diagnostic equipment. Awards. Philanthropy. Magazine covers. And photos. Endless photos of Bennett at industry events. Bennett accepting honors. Bennett with various beautiful women at charity galas. The most recent images showed him with Miranda Wells, a stunning socialite whose family name appeared on hospital wings and university buildings across the country. "Looks like he has done quite well for himself," Dorothy observed, peering over Nora's shoulder. "Did you expect anything less?" Nora replied, setting the phone aside. She could not stomach looking at any more evidence of his success while she sat in her modest apartment calculating how many rideshare fares she needed to cover next month's rent. "Tell me again how you two met," Dorothy said, settling back against the cushions. "I know the outline, but not the details." Nora smiled despite herself. The memory was still vivid even after all these years. "I was recruited to Vertex Medical Solutions right out of grad school. Small startup, big dreams. We were developing a diagnostic device that could detect certain cancers years earlier than existing methods. I was the lead biomedical engineer. The youngest on the team, but also, I was told, the most talented. And he noticed you." "Not at first." Bennett was the co-founder. The face of the company. Always in meetings with investors or traveling to conferences. "I was in the lab 70 hours a week, so focused on the work I barely noticed he existed. So what changed? He came to observe a demonstration of our prototype. I was explaining the mechanism to a group of potential investors when he interrupted with a question that revealed he had not actually read the technical documentation. I may have corrected him in front of everyone. Dorothy laughed. Oh, I wish I could have seen that. It was not my finest diplomatic moment, Nora admitted. But instead of being offended, he was intrigued. He found me after the meeting and asked if I would explain where his understanding had gone wrong. We ended up talking for 3 hours. And that was the beginning. That was the beginning. Not romance at first. Just two people who respected each other's minds. Who pushed each other to be better. Who found in each other the kind of intellectual partnership that is rare and precious. But it became more. Yes. Nora's voice softened. He saw me. Really saw me. Not just my work but who I was. What I wanted. What I feared. I had never felt so understood by anyone. And you fell in love. I fell so deeply in love I lost myself in it. He talked about our future like it was already written. Marriage. Children. Building something together that would change the world. I believed every word. So what happened? Dorothy asked gently. Why did he leave? Nora was quiet for a long moment, the old pain rising fresh as if it had happened yesterday. The company needed expansion capital. A major investment group in Munich was interested, but they wanted Bennett there full-time to oversee the European operations. It was an 18-month commitment minimum. A chance to transform Vertex from a promising startup into a global company. And he asked you to go with him. He did. And I wanted to. More than anything. But my mother had just been diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer. The doctors gave her 6 months. I could not leave the country while she was dying. Of course not. Bennett understood. Or he said he did. The plan was that he would go first, get things established, and I would join him after. He would fly back whenever possible. We would call every day. Nothing would change between us. But it did change. Not at first. The first 2 weeks were exactly as he promised. Calls every night, sometimes for hours. Plans for my visit. He sent flowers. He sent handwritten letters because he knew how much I loved them. And then the calls became shorter. Less frequent. After 6 weeks, days would pass without a response to my messages. After 2 months. Silence. Complete silence. Complete. I thought something had happened to him. I called his office and was told he was unavailable. I emailed and received no response. I was terrified and confused and then I found out I was pregnant. Nora closed her eyes against the memory. The simultaneous joy and terror of seeing those 2 lines on the test. The desperate need to tell him. The growing realization that he had vanished from her life as completely as if he had never existed. I tried everything to reach him, she continued. Called every day. Emailed constantly. Finally, I took the money I had been saving for my mother's medical expenses and bought a plane ticket to Munich. I thought if I could just see him face to face, everything would make sense. But you never got to see him. I got as far as the lobby of his European headquarters. His chief of staff met me there. A woman named Catherine Marsh. Cold, polished, completely certain. She told me Bennett had instructed that I was not to contact him further. That our relationship was concluded. That I was creating a distraction during a critical business phase. She said those words. Relationship concluded. She did. Like I was a contract that had reached its termination date. When I tried to explain that I needed to tell him something important, she said there was nothing I could say that he would want to hear. Then security escorted me from the building. And the restraining order arrived 1 week later, on official company letterhead, along with a personal letter supposedly from Bennett himself. Nora's voice hardened. That letter said things I have never been able to forget. That I was desperate and pathetic. That I had mistaken professional courtesy for personal interest. That any further attempts at contact would result in legal action that would destroy what little career I had left. Dorothy squeezed her hand tighter. That is monstrous. I read that letter so many times the paper started to fall apart. I memorized every cruel word. And then, my mother died. Oh, sweetheart. 3 months before the twins were born. I gave birth alone. In a hospital where no one knew my name. Dorothy was the first person outside medical staff to hold them. The older woman's eyes glistened with unshed tears. I remember. You called me from the hospital. A stranger from the apartment next door. And I came. You came, Nora confirmed. You have been coming ever since. They sat in silence for a while, the weight of the past pressing down on both of them. Finally, Dorothy spoke again. But tonight he claimed he never knew about any of this. That he never sent that letter. That someone else manipulated the situation. Yes. Do you think that is possible? Nora considered the question carefully. I do not know. It would explain things that never made sense. Why he would promise me a future and then cut me off so completely. Why he never tried to contact me again. But it does not explain why he did not question what he was being told. Why he did not demand to speak with me directly before believing I had abandoned him. No, Dorothy agreed. It does not explain that. Even if everything he said tonight is true. Even if he was manipulated and deceived. He still failed to fight for me. He still chose the easy explanation over the complicated truth. So what are you going to do? Nora looked toward the hallway that led to the twins' bedroom. Beyond that door, her children slept peacefully. Willa with her dark curls spread across the pillow. Oliver with his book about space still clutched in his hands. They were her whole world. Everything she had sacrificed for. Everything she continued to fight for every single day. I do not know, she admitted. Part of me wants to protect them from ever being hurt by him. Another part wonders if I have the right to keep them from knowing their father. They have been asking more questions lately. Especially Oliver. What kind of questions? Last week he wanted to know if his father liked building things too, or if that came from my side of the family. What did you tell him? The truth. That his father was very interested in technology and innovation, and that probably contributed to Oliver's curiosity about how things work. I have never lied to them about Bennett. I have just curated the information. Age-appropriate editing. Something like that. Dorothy stood and gathered her things. It is late, she said gently. And you have 2 children who will be awake at dawn regardless of how much sleep you got. Whatever decisions need to be made can wait until morning. You are right, Nora agreed, walking her friend to the door. Thank you for being here tonight. For being here all these years. Always. Dorothy hugged her tightly. And Nora. Whatever you decide about Bennett meeting the twins. I am in your corner. After Dorothy left, Nora quietly opened the door to the twins' bedroom. In the soft glow of their star-shaped nightlight, she could see them sleeping peacefully. Willa sprawled across her bed, surrounded by sketchbooks and colored pencils. Oliver curled neatly on his side, his dark hair falling across his forehead in a way that made her heart ache with recognition. They looked so much like Bennett. It sometimes took her breath away. Oliver had his father's intense focus and analytical mind, always taking things apart to understand how they worked. Willa had Bennett's charm and quick wit, able to talk her way into or out of almost any situation. Looking at them now, Nora could not regret any of the hardships she had endured since Bennett left. Every sacrifice, every extra shift, every missed opportunity in her own career had been worth it to give these 2 extraordinary humans a secure and loving home. But had she been right to keep them from their father? To raise them without him based on her own hurt and assumptions about his choices? For the first time in years, she allowed herself to consider that question honestly. If Bennett truly had not known about the pregnancy, if someone really had intercepted her messages and acted without his authorization, what then? Did that change anything? Did it erase 8 years of absence? Did it give him the right to disrupt their carefully constructed lives now? Nora had no answers. Only a growing certainty that the careful boundaries she had built around her small family were about to be tested in ways she could not yet imagine. With a soft sigh, she closed the twins' door and retreated to her own room. Whatever decisions needed to be made could wait until morning. For now, she needed sleep and the temporary oblivion it offered from the emotional chaos of the evening. But sleep proved elusive as her mind replayed the encounter with Bennett on an endless loop. His shock at recognizing her. His disbelief at learning about the twins. His insistence that he had never received her messages. Was it possible he was telling the truth? And if he was, what did that mean for all of them? Around 3 in the morning, Nora finally drifted into an uneasy sleep. Bennett's business card was still on her nightstand where she had placed it after discovering it in her jacket pocket. She had not remembered picking it up. Must have grabbed it automatically when gathering her things from the car. His personal number. No assistants. No gatekeepers. Just him. She dreamed of Munich. Of gleaming office buildings and cold-eyed women and security guards who spoke in languages she could not understand. She dreamed of letters that burned as she read them. Of words that cut deeper than any physical wound. She dreamed of Bennett, standing in the rain, saying "I am sorry" over and over while she walked away and could not stop walking no matter how hard she tried. Morning arrived with the typical Saturday chaos that Nora had come to depend on for its normalcy. Oliver could not find his library book. Willa insisted on a specific hairstyle that required skills Nora had never quite mastered. The coffee maker chose this particular day to malfunction entirely. "Mom, is my blue notebook in your room?" Oliver called from the hallway, his voice urgent with the particular intensity of a 7-year-old. "I need it. I wrote down all my project ideas in it." "Check under the couch in the living room," Nora called back, attempting to create a passable braid in Willa's uncooperative curls. "I think I saw it there yesterday." "Found it." The relief in his voice was palpable. A young scientist recovering crucial research. "Mom, you are pulling," Willa complained, squirming on the bathroom stool. "Sorry, sweetheart. Almost done." She secured the braid with a butterfly clip and stepped back to survey her work. It was not perfect. It was never perfect. But it was good enough, and good enough had become her standard for survival. "Can I wear my sparkly shoes today?" Willa asked, examining her reflection with the critical eye of a child who knew exactly what she wanted. "It is Saturday art class. You are going to be painting." "But Daddy might see me." The word hit Nora like a physical blow. She knelt down to her daughter's level, her heart racing. "What did you say?" Willa's eyes went wide, sensing she had stepped into unfamiliar territory. I heard you and Miss Dorothy talking last night. About someone named Bennett." She paused. "Is he our father?" Nora closed her eyes for a moment, gathering herself. When she opened them, she found Oliver standing in the bathroom doorway, his expression serious and watchful. "You were eavesdropping," she said, keeping her voice neutral. "The heating vent connects to my room," Oliver explained without a trace of apology. "Sound carries." I could not help hearing. Of course. The heating system. Her practical son had probably known about that acoustic quirk for years and filed it away as useful information. She looked from one child to the other. Her brilliant, curious, resilient children who deserved honesty even when honesty was difficult. "Come sit with me," she said, leading them to the living room sofa. "I need to tell you something." They settled on either side of her, their small bodies warm against hers. Willa reached for her hand automatically. Oliver sat slightly apart, his posture alert, ready to receive and process information. "You know that you have a father somewhere," Nora began carefully. "We have talked about this before. You said he was not ready to be a parent," Oliver recalled. "That it was not our fault." "That is right. And it was not, is not, your father." She paused, weighing her words. "I saw him last night. For the first time in many years. He did not know about you two until I told him. He did not know we existed." Willa's voice was small, confused. "How could he not know? It is complicated, sweetheart. There were misunderstandings. Problems with communication. People who may have kept us apart on purpose." "What kind of people?" Oliver asked. "That is something I am still trying to understand." The twins exchanged one of their wordless looks. The silent communication between them that had fascinated Nora since their infancy. She waited, letting them process at their own pace. "Does he want to meet us?" Oliver finally asked. His tone was careful, guarded. "He says he does. Do we have to?" "No." Nora squeezed both their hands. You never have to do anything you are not comfortable with. But I wanted to be honest with you about what is happening. You deserve to know the truth. What is he like? Willa asked. Our father. Nora considered the question carefully. She would not lie. She would not paint him as either villain or hero. They deserved a fuller picture than her pain and anger could provide. He is very smart, she said. Like both of you. He works with technology that helps doctors find diseases earlier so they can treat them better. He asks a lot of questions and he does not like to wait for answers. She paused. He has your eyes, Oliver. And Willa, you have his smile. Is he nice? I thought so once. Whether he still is. That is something I do not know yet. Willa snuggled closer to her mother. Will meeting him change things? Between us. Nothing could ever change how much I love you, Nora promised. Nothing in this world. You two are my everything. Whatever happens with your father, that will never change. Oliver was quiet for a long moment, his analytical mind clearly working through possibilities. I think we should meet him, he said finally. It is only logical. How can we decide how we feel about him if we do not know him at all? Willa nodded slowly, taking her cue from her brother as she often did in matters requiring careful thought. But only if you are there too, Mom. The whole time. Of course, Nora agreed. I would never leave you alone with someone you do not know. The conversation continued for another half hour. The twins asking questions, Nora answering as honestly as she could, all three of them navigating unfamiliar emotional territory together. By the end, they had reached a tentative consensus. They would consider meeting Bennett, but on their terms, in their time, with their mother present throughout. It was more than Nora had expected. More than she had prepared for. These children of hers continued to surprise her with their resilience and their wisdom. Now, she said, rising from the couch. We need to get ready for art class. And Oliver, did you finish your science reading? Yesterday, he confirmed. Chapter 7 was about plate tectonics. Did you know the continents are still moving? Very slowly. Like centimeters per year. I did know that, Nora said, smiling. But I did not know you had such strong feelings about it. It is important information, he said solemnly. The Earth is never as stable as it looks. Neither, Nora reflected as she ushered them toward their rooms, was anything else. Her phone buzzed with a text message as she was gathering the twins' art supplies. An unknown number. I have not slept. I have spent all night trying to understand what happened 8 years ago. I have contacted my former assistant and am reviewing old records. Please, Nora. I need to talk to you. I need to explain. And I need to know more about my children. Bennett. She stared at the message for a long moment. The desperation in his words was palpable even through text. She recognized it because she had felt it herself once. That frantic need to understand when nothing made sense. Against her better judgment, she typed a response. I am busy with the twins today. Tomorrow. 3 o'clock. Civic Center Park. Come alone. His reply was immediate. I will be there. Thank you, Nora. Thank you. She tucked the phone in her pocket and called for the children to hurry up. Life continued despite emotional earthquakes. Another lesson she had learned too well. The rest of Saturday passed in a blur of normalcy. Art class for Willa, library visit for Oliver, grocery shopping together because Nora had learned that including them in household tasks taught responsibility better than any lecture. They made dinner together. Spaghetti with homemade sauce, a weekend tradition. They watched a movie afterward, the twins curled against her on the couch like they had done since they were small enough to fit in her lap together. It was not the life she had imagined. But it was a good life. Full of love. Full of small moments that accumulated into something precious. She wondered if Bennett had any idea what he had missed. If he would understand, when he finally met them, exactly how much his absence had cost. Sunday afternoon arrived with a kind of crisp autumn sunshine that made Denver feel like a postcard. Nora had arranged for Dorothy to watch the twins, explaining only that she had a meeting with an old acquaintance. They had accepted this without protest, too absorbed in helping Dorothy plan a baking project to ask many questions. Civic Center Park was busy with Sunday visitors enjoying the weather. Nora arrived early, choosing a bench with a clear view of the surrounding area. She had dressed carefully. Jeans, a blue sweater that she knew brought out her eyes, practical boots in case she needed to walk away quickly. Not to impress Bennett. Never that. But to feel confident and in control of a situation where she held very little actual control. She spotted him the moment he entered the park. It was impossible not to. Even in casual clothes, dark jeans, and a grey sweater that probably cost more than her monthly rent, Bennett Aldrich commanded attention. Tall and athletic, with the confident stride of a man accustomed to entering rooms where everyone knew his name and worth. But something was different today. The corporate polish had dimmed. He looked tired. Worn. Like a man who had spent the past 48 hours confronting uncomfortable truths about his own life. He saw her and his pace quickened. She watched him approach, keeping her expression neutral despite the storm of emotions his presence stirred. "Thank you for meeting me," he said, stopping a few feet from the bench. "I was not sure you would." "Neither was I." He gestured to the space beside her. "May I?" She nodded and he sat, careful to maintain distance between them. For a moment neither spoke. The sounds of the park filled the silence. Children playing, dogs barking, the distant hum of traffic. "I have spent the last 2 days turning my life upside down," Bennett finally said. "Going through records. Talking to former employees. Trying to piece together what happened 8 years ago. And I owe you more than an apology. I owe you an explanation. Not because it excuses anything, but because you deserve to know the truth." Nora turned to look at him directly. "Then tell me." Bennett took a deep breath. "When I left for Munich, I was completely focused on securing the investment that would save the company. Everything else, including our relationship, became secondary to that goal. I am not proud of that. It was a failure of priority and a failure of love." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "But I never stopped wanting to hear from you. I checked my phone constantly, waiting for your calls and messages. And they came. At first. Then they stopped." "They did not stop," Nora said quietly. "I never stopped trying to reach you. I know that now." His voice was heavy with regret. "Catherine Marsh. My chief of staff. She controlled all my personal communications during that period. She claimed it was for efficiency. I was in meetings 18 hours a day and she filtered everything so I would not be distracted by non-essential matters. And I was non-essential. You were never supposed to be classified that way. But I trusted her judgment. I was young and overwhelmed and I let her make decisions I should have made myself." "What about the letter?" Nora asked. "The one that called me desperate and pathetic. The one that threatened legal action." "I did not write it." Bennett's voice cracked. "She wrote it. She forged my signature. She filed the restraining order paperwork without my knowledge or authorization." "Why? Why would she do that?" "Because she was in love with me." Nora stared at him. "What?" "Catherine had feelings for me that I was completely oblivious to. I found her personal files 2 days ago. Journals. Notes. A detailed plan for removing you from my life so she could take your place. She intercepted your communications. She fabricated evidence that you were trying to extort me. She created an entire false narrative that I accepted without question because I trusted her. The information should have brought relief. Explanation. Instead, Nora felt only a complicated mixture of horror and anger. "You trusted her," she repeated. "A woman you barely knew. Over me. A woman you claimed to love. I did not trust her over you. I did not think of it that way. I thought you had given up on us. That the pressure of your mother's illness and the distance had been too much. That you had moved on to someone who could be there in person when I could not. So you believed the worst of me without ever asking directly." "Yes." Bennett's voice was barely audible. "I believed the story that was easier to believe. The one that did not require me to question someone I worked with every day. The one that let me focus on the company without the complication of confronting what I was losing." Nora stood abruptly and walked a few steps away, needing distance. When she turned back, her eyes were bright with unshed tears and years of accumulated pain. "Do you understand what that choice cost me?" she demanded. "I gave birth to your children alone. I buried my mother alone. I spent 7 years working 2 jobs, sometimes 3, to keep a roof over their heads. I gave up my career, my dreams, everything I had worked for, because I could not be both a single parent and a biomedical engineer. I understand, Bennett said quietly. No. You do not. You cannot possibly understand what it means to hold a newborn in each arm and know that there is no one coming to help. To watch your children grow up and know they will never have a father because the man who should have filled that role chose convenience over truth. Bennett rose and took a step toward her. Nora, I do not. She held up her hand. Do not tell me you are sorry. Sorry is the most useless word in the English language. It changes nothing. It fixes nothing. It certainly does not give back the years you were absent. I know. Then what do you want from me, Bennett? What could you possibly expect me to say right now? I do not expect anything. He stopped, visibly struggling with his emotions. I do not deserve anything from you. But I am asking, begging really, for a chance to know my children, to be part of their lives in whatever way you will allow. You want to be a father now, after 7 years. I want to earn the right to be called that. He met her eyes and held them. I know I cannot buy back the time I lost. I know trust is not something I can purchase with money or demand with authority. But I can show up. Starting now. Starting today. I can be present in a way I was not before. And if I say no, then I will respect your decision. Bennett's voice was steady despite the pain evident in his face. You are their mother. You have raised them alone for 7 years. You know what is best for them far better than I do. If you tell me that my presence would harm them, I will stay away. The sincerity in his words caught Nora off guard. This was not the arrogant CEO demanding answers in the back of her car. This was not the distant figure on magazine covers, all corporate Polish and manufactured confidence. This was something she had not expected. Humility. Genuine, unvarnished humility. The twins know about you, she said finally. I told them yesterday. About the Uber ride. About who you are. About the possibility of meeting you. Bennett's expression transformed with hope and fear in equal measure. What did they say? They have questions. Many questions. Oliver approaches everything analytically. He wants data before he makes decisions. Willa follows her brother's lead in serious matters, but she also asks about feelings. Whether you are nice. Whether meeting you will change things between us. What did you tell them? That they did not have to meet you if they were not comfortable. That I would be there the entire time if they decided to try. That nothing could ever change how much I love them or our family. And they said they would consider it. Bennett released a breath he seemed to have been holding. Thank you. For being honest with them. For giving them a choice. They deserve choices. They deserve the truth. They deserve better than either of us got. Silence fell between them again. But different now. Less hostile. The air had shifted somehow. There is something else you should know, Bennett said. Miranda. The woman I have been seeing. If you can call it that. She came to my hotel yesterday. Demanding explanations about why my schedule has been disrupted, why I am suddenly unavailable for social obligations. And I ended things. Publicly. Completely. Whatever she and I were, it was never more than appearance. 2 people attending the same events because it looked good in photographs. There was nothing real there. Nora processed this information. That is between you and her. I am telling you because I want you to understand. There is nothing and no one that comes before this. Before them. I have spent the last 2 days dismantling my life, and I would dismantle more if that is what it takes. What about your company? Your responsibilities? I have a board of directors and an executive team specifically, so the company does not collapse if I am unavailable. For the first time in 10 years, I am choosing to be unavailable for something that actually matters. Nora looked at him for a long moment. 8 years ago she had loved this man with everything she had. 8 years of pain and struggle had transformed that love into something harder. Anger and grief compressed into a protective shell around her heart. But beneath that shell, something stirred. Not forgiveness. Not reconciliation. Something smaller than that. A crack in the armor just wide enough to let in a sliver of possibility. Wednesday after school, she said. The Denver Museum of Nature and Science. 3 o'clock. Come alone. No assistance, no security, no fanfare. Just you. The hope that bloomed on Bennett's face was almost painful to witness. Wednesday, he repeated. 3 o'clock. I will be there. This is not a promise of anything, Nora cautioned. This is a chance. One chance. If you disappoint them, if you hurt them, if you make a single promise you cannot keep. I will not, Bennett said. I swear to you, Nora. I will not let them down. She wanted to believe him. Wanted to believe that people could change. That the man who had abandoned her, even unknowingly, could become someone worthy of the extraordinary children they had created together. But wanting and believing were different things. And trust, once shattered, did not rebuild itself on the strength of good intentions alone. I should get back to the twins, she said, gathering herself to leave. Of course. Bennett stood as she did. Thank you. For listening. For giving me a chance I do not deserve. You are right. You do not deserve it. But this is not about what you deserve. It is about what is best for Willa and Oliver. They deserve to know their father. Whether that father is someone worth knowing. She paused, meeting his eyes one final time. That is what Wednesday will begin to show us. She walked away then, not looking back. But she felt his gaze on her all the way across the park. The weight of 8 years of questions and pain and complicated hope pressing down on her shoulders with every step. Wednesday. The museum. The beginning of something she could not predict or control. The twins were waiting when she got home, full of questions about her meeting and demands to know every detail. She told them what she could. That she had spoken with their father. That he wanted to meet them. That they would try on Wednesday if they still felt comfortable. Oliver listened with his characteristic intensity, processing and analyzing. Willa asked about feelings again. Was he sad he missed us? Does he seem like someone who keeps his promises? Nora answered honestly. She did not know. She could not know. That was what they would all find out together. That night, after the twins were asleep, her phone buzzed with another message from Bennett. I meant what I said today. All of it. I will spend the rest of my life proving that if you let me. Thank you for Wednesday. Thank you for everything. She read the message 3 times before setting the phone aside without responding. Words were easy. Anyone could make promises. Anyone could say the right things at the right moments. Actions were harder. Actions required follow-through. Consistency. The daily showing up that she had managed for 7 years without any help at all. Wednesday would be the beginning. But only the beginning. Real trust took years to build and seconds to destroy. Bennett Aldrich had a long road ahead of him if he truly wanted to be part of his children's lives. As she drifted towards sleep, Nora found herself wondering what kind of man he would prove to be. The one who had left without looking back. Or someone new. Someone tempered by time and loss and the devastating discovery of what his passivity had cost. She would find out soon enough. They all would. And in her dreams that night, for the first time in 8 years, Munich did not burn. The letters did not cut. Bennett stood in the rain saying I am sorry, but this time, when she tried to walk away, she found she could stop. She found she could turn around. Wednesday arrived with a kind of crystalline autumn light that made Denver feel like a painting. The sky stretched endless and blue above the mountains, and the air carried that particular crispness that announced winter was coming but had not yet arrived. Nora had taken the afternoon off from both jobs. A luxury she could not afford but could not avoid. Some moments required full presence, and this was one of them. The twins had been unusually quiet all morning. Oliver had reorganized his bookshelf twice before breakfast, a nervous habit he had developed around age 4. Willa had changed outfits 3 times before settling on her favorite purple dress, the one she saved for occasions that mattered. They knew something significant was about to happen. They understood, in the intuitive way children often understand, that today would change things. You do not have to do this, Nora reminded them as they drove toward the museum. If you change your minds at any point, we leave. No questions asked. No disappointment. This is your choice. We know, Mom, Oliver said from the back seat. You have told us 6 times. 7. Willa corrected. I counted. Nora smiled despite the tension knotting her stomach. These children of hers. So precise. So observant. So much stronger than she had any right to expect. The Denver Museum of Nature and Science rose before them, its distinctive architecture familiar from countless visits over the years. This was neutral territory. A place the twins associated with wonder and discovery, not with complicated adult emotions. That had been intentional. She parked and they walked together toward the entrance, the twins flanking her on either side. Oliver's hand found hers without conscious thought. Willa walked slightly ahead, her chin lifted with determination that reminded Nora painfully of Bennett. He was already there, waiting near the ticket counter, scanning the crowd with barely concealed anxiety. When he spotted them, his entire posture changed. Straightened. Softened. Became somehow both more alert and more vulnerable. He was wearing jeans and a simple blue button-down shirt. No suit. No corporate armor. He looked younger than he had in her car that rainy night. More human. The twins stopped walking. Nora felt Oliver's grip tighten on her hand. Willa took a small step backward, suddenly uncertain. We can leave, Nora said quietly. Right now. Say the word. No. Oliver's voice was steady despite his obvious nervousness. We said we would try. We should try. He released her hand and walked forward. Willa followed after a moment's hesitation. Nora stayed where she was, watching, ready to intervene if needed but determined to let her children take the lead. Bennett crouched down slightly as they approached, bringing himself closer to their eye level. He did not rush forward. Did not try to embrace them. Simply waited, letting them set the pace. Hello, he said. His voice carried a roughness that suggested he had not slept much. You must be Oliver. And Willa. How did you know which was which? Willa asked, her natural curiosity momentarily overriding her caution. Your mother told me about you. Oliver likes to analyze things carefully before making decisions. Willa follows her instincts and asks questions about feelings. He smiled tentatively. You walked ahead. He held back. It was not difficult to guess. Oliver studied him with the focused intensity that Nora recognized from every science project and book report her son had ever undertaken. You are taller than I expected, Oliver said finally. Most pictures online use angles that make people look different in person. You researched me. It seemed logical. You are a public figure. Information was available. Bennett nodded slowly, accepting this assessment. What did you find? You have 3 patents in medical diagnostic technology. Your company's stock has increased 400% in the last 5 years. You donate to children's hospitals and environmental causes. You dated someone named Miranda Wells for approximately 18 months. He paused. You left our mother when she was pregnant and did not come back for 7 years. The words landed like stones. Bennett did not flinch, did not look away, did not offer excuses. All of that is accurate, he said quietly. Especially the last part. Why? Willa asked. Her voice was smaller than her brother's, but no less direct. Why did you leave? Bennett took a breath. Nora watched him choose his words with care. I made a mistake, he said. A terrible mistake. I trusted people I should not have trusted. I believed things that were not true. And I was so focused on my work that I did not fight hard enough to find out what was really happening. But you could have called, Willa pressed. You could have come to see us. I did not know you existed. Bennett's voice cracked slightly. Until 4 days ago, I had no idea your mother was pregnant when I left. Someone kept that information from me. Someone made sure I would never find out. Who? Oliver asked. A woman who worked for me. Someone I thought was helping me but was actually hurting everyone. Willa considered this. That is a very convenient excuse. Nora felt a surge of pride at her daughter's sharpness. Willa might lead with emotion, but she was no one's fool. You are right, Bennett agreed. It does sound convenient. And I cannot prove to you in 5 minutes that I am telling the truth. I cannot undo 7 years of absence with words. All I can do is show you, over time, that I mean what I say. If you will let me try. The twins exchanged one of their silent looks. That wordless communication that had always fascinated Nora. Some agreement passed between them. "We will try," Oliver said finally. "But we have conditions." Bennett's eyebrows rose slightly. "Conditions?" "First," Willa said, counting on her fingers. "You do not make promises you cannot keep. Mom says that is the worst thing adults do." "Second," Oliver continued, "you do not try to buy our affection with expensive things. We are not for sale." "Third," Willa added, "if you hurt Mom, we will never speak to you again. She is the one who was there. You were not. She comes first." Bennett was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was thick with emotion. "Those are excellent conditions," he said. "I accept all of them." "Good." Oliver nodded once, satisfied. "Now can we go see the space exhibit? I have been reading about the new planetarium show." The next 2 hours were unlike anything Nora had anticipated. She had expected awkwardness, tension, perhaps tears. Instead she watched something unexpected unfold. Bennett listened. Really listened. When Oliver explained the mechanics of stellar formation with passionate precision, Bennett asked follow-up questions that revealed genuine interest rather than polite tolerance. When Willa pointed out the artistic elements of exhibit designs, the way colors and lighting guided emotional responses, Bennett engaged with her observations as if they were profound insights worth serious consideration. Because they were. Her children were remarkable. And for the first time, someone besides Nora and Dorothy was seeing that. She hung back, letting them explore together while she watched. The way Oliver gradually moved closer to Bennett as his initial wariness faded. The way Willa began directing comments to their father as naturally as she directed them to her brother. Small shifts. Incremental changes. The beginning of something that might, given time, become real. At the planetarium show, they sat in the darkened theater as artificial stars wheeled overhead. Willa sat between Nora and Bennett, her small hand finding his at some point during the presentation. Oliver sat on Nora's other side, but his gaze kept drifting toward his father, studying him in the dim light. When they emerged, blinking in the afternoon sunshine, something had shifted. "That was acceptable," Oliver announced, which in his vocabulary was high praise. "Can we come back?" Willa asked, looking between her mother and father. "All of us. Together." Bennett looked to Nora. She saw the hope in his eyes, carefully contained but unmistakable. "We will see," she said. "One step at a time." It was not a promise. But it was not a refusal either. And right now, that was the best she could offer. The days that followed established a careful rhythm. Bennett called each evening, always at the same time, always asking about their day rather than trying to impress them with tales of his own importance. He visited on weekends, fitting himself into their existing routines rather than attempting to create new ones. He helped Oliver with a science project about renewable energy, bringing genuine expertise but letting the boy take the lead. He sat through Willa's art class presentations, asking thoughtful questions about her creative choices. He did not push, did not overwhelm, did not make grand gestures or expensive promises. He simply showed up. Again and again. Consistently. Reliably. In a way that slowly began to mean something. Nora watched it all with the wary attention of someone who had learned the hard way that good things could vanish without warning. She waited for the cracks to show. For the inevitable moment when his interest would wane, when something more important would call him away. But the cracks did not come. And gradually, almost against her will, something began to shift in her own heart. It happened on a Saturday evening 3 weeks after the museum visit. Bennett had spent the afternoon helping the twins build a model rocket in the small backyard behind their apartment building. Nora had watched from the kitchen window as the three of them bent over the project together, heads close, voices carrying in fragments through the glass. Now the twins were asleep, exhausted from the day's activities, and Bennett was preparing to leave. They stood in the doorway of her apartment, the hallway light casting long shadows. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for today. For all of it." "You are doing well with them," Nora admitted. "Better than I expected. I had good teachers." He smiled slightly. "They tell me exactly what they need. They do not let me get away with anything. They learned that from someone." His gaze held hers. "Yes. They did." Silence stretched between them. Not uncomfortable. Something else. Something that made Nora's pulse quicken despite her best efforts at emotional distance. I should go, Bennett said. Early meeting tomorrow. Of course. But he did not move. And neither did she. Nora, he said. His voice had dropped, become more intimate. I know I have no right to ask this. I know I have not earned it. But... He stopped. Started again. These past 3 weeks. Being with them. Being near you. It has changed something in me. Something I did not even know was broken. She said nothing. Waited. I spent 8 years building an empire and I was never happy. Not really. I told myself I was. Told myself success was the goal and everything else would follow. But it was empty. All of it. And now I understand what I was missing. He took a breath. Not just the children, although they are extraordinary, but everything. The way Oliver explains things. The way Willa sees beauty in unexpected places. The way you have built a home for them with nothing but determination and love. I missed all of it. And I am only beginning to understand the magnitude of that loss. Nora felt her throat tighten. This was not the speech she had expected. Not the smooth corporate presentation she had braced herself for. This was something rawer. More honest. What are you saying? She asked. I am saying that I want to be part of this. Not as a visitor. Not as someone who shows up on weekends and holidays. I want to be here. Really here. For all of it. Bennett. I am not asking for us to become what we were before. I know that is gone. I know I destroyed it through negligence even if not through intent. But maybe we could become something new. Something that starts from here. She should refuse. Should remind him of all the reasons this was impossible. The years of struggle. The letters that still burned in her memory even now. The trust that had been so completely shattered. But standing in her doorway in the dim light of a Saturday evening, watching the man she had once loved try so hard to become someone worthy of a second chance, Nora found she could not summon the words of refusal. I do not know how to trust you, she said instead. After everything. I know, he said. You should not trust me. I have not earned it. All I am asking is for the chance to try. And what does trying look like? It looks like this. Showing up. Listening. Being present. Not expecting anything. Not demanding anything. Just being here. That is not enough. Then tell me what would be enough. Tell me what you need. And I will do it. The certainty in his voice was different from the corporate confidence she remembered. This was quieter. More grounded. The certainty of a man who had examined his life and found it wanting. Who had decided, perhaps for the first time, what actually mattered. I need time, Nora said finally. I need to see consistency. Not 3 weeks. Not 3 months. Years, Bennett. Years of showing up. Years of keeping promises. Years of putting them first. I will give you years, he said. As many as you need. And I need you to understand that I may never feel about you the way I once did. That damage may be permanent. I understand. Do you? Because I will not pretend. I will not perform affection I do not feel just because you want a certain outcome. I am not asking you to pretend anything. He stepped back slightly, giving her space. I am asking for honesty. Whatever that looks like. Even if it means you never feel anything for me again. Nora studied him in the dim light. Looking for the cracks. The hidden agenda. The manipulation. She found only exhaustion. And hope. And something that looked remarkably like acceptance. Good night, Bennett, she said. Good night, Nora. He turned and walked toward the stairs. She watched him go, her heart beating too fast, her mind racing with implications and fears. Bennett, she called, when he was halfway down the hall. He stopped. Turned. The rocket launches tomorrow at 10, she said. The twins want you there. His face transformed. That hope she had seen, that carefully contained hope, broke free for just a moment. I will be there, he said. I promise. Then he was gone. And Nora closed the door and leaned against it, trying to steady her breathing. Trying to understand what she had just done. She had opened a door. Just a crack. Just enough to let in a sliver of possibility. Whether that was wisdom or folly, only time would tell. The rocket launched successfully the next morning, climbing into the October sky before deploying its parachute and drifting back to Earth. Oliver's face glowed with triumph. Willa cheered. Bennett lifted them both into the air, one on each arm, spinning them around while they laughed. Nora stood slightly apart, watching, feeling something shift in her chest. Something that might have been hope. The photograph Dorothy took of that moment would later sit on her mantelpiece. The twins in their father's arms, all three of them laughing, the mountains visible in the distance behind them. A family, perhaps. Or the beginning of one. But beginnings are fragile things. And this one was about to be tested. The first sign of trouble came 3 days later. Nora arrived at the children's therapy clinic for her morning shift to find her co-worker Maya holding a phone with an expression of barely contained excitement. "Is this you?" Maya demanded, showing her the screen. It was a tabloid website. The headline screamed in bold letters. Billionaire CEO Bennett Aldrich's secret family revealed. The photograph was grainy but recognizable. Bennett crouching to speak with the twins outside the museum. Nora's profile visible at the edge of the frame. The article was pure speculation. Sources close to the situation claim the children are Aldrich's previously unknown offspring with a former employee. The identity of the mother has not been confirmed. Representatives for Aldrich Medical Systems declined to comment. Nora's stomach dropped. Maya was watching her with undisguised curiosity. "Oh, is it true?" "I need to make a phone call," Nora said, already moving toward the break room. Her hands were shaking as she dialed Bennett's number. He answered on the first ring. "I have seen it," he said before she could speak. "I am so sorry, Nora. I am already working to contain this." "Contain it? It is already online. How did they even know?" "I do not know yet. My security team is investigating. Someone followed me to the museum. Took photographs without my knowledge." "The twins," Nora said, panic rising in her chest. "Their school. What if there are photographers outside their school?" "I anticipated that. I have already deployed a security team to the area. Discreet. They will not approach the children, but they will prevent any media intrusion." The swift response should have reassured her. Instead, it highlighted everything she feared about this collision between their worlds. "This is exactly what I was afraid of," she said. "The exposure. The attention. I have spent 7 years keeping them protected from exactly this kind of thing." "I know," Bennett said. "And I am going to do everything in my power to shield them from it." "But Nora, the story is out. We need to decide how to respond." "We." There is no we in this decision. They are my children. They are our children. His voice was firm but not aggressive. And this affects all of us. We need to present a united front, or the media will create their own narrative. She hated that he was right. Hated the feeling of events spiraling beyond her control. "What do you suggest?" she asked tightly. "A brief statement acknowledging my recent discovery that I have children from a previous relationship. Requesting privacy for the children during this adjustment period. Nothing more. And if they dig deeper, if they find out about Munich, about what happened between us, my legal team is prepared to respond to any defamatory claims." "But Nora, the best way to protect the twins is to make this story as boring as possible. A simple acknowledgement. A request for privacy. Nothing salacious. Nothing dramatic." She closed her eyes, leaning against the break room wall. "I need to call their school," she said. "Speak with the principal." "Already done," Bennett replied. "I contacted them an hour ago. They are aware of the situation and have increased security protocols for the day." "You called their school without asking me. I did not want to wake you until I had information and a plan. I am sorry if I overstepped." "You did overstep. I know." He paused. "It will not happen again." "But Nora, right now, what matters is getting through this day without the twins being affected. Can we agree on that at least?" She wanted to argue. wanted to assert her authority, her primacy in decisions about her own children. But he was right. Again. And the twins' well-being had to come before her wounded pride. "Fine," she said. "Issue your statement. But I want approval over the final wording." "Of course. I will send it to you within the hour." She ended the call and stood for a moment in the quiet of the break room, trying to calm her racing heart. This was the reality she had feared. The collision between Bennett's public life and her private one. The exposure of the careful boundaries she had built to protect her family. And it was only the beginning. The statement was issued by noon. Brief, dignified, requesting privacy. Most legitimate news outlets respected the request, noting the story and moving on to other matters. But the internet had its own rules. By evening, speculation was rampant. Who was the mystery mother? What had happened between them? Why had Aldrich only now acknowledged his children? Nora stayed off social media, but she could not escape the curious looks from neighbors, the whispered conversations that stopped when she entered rooms. Her carefully constructed anonymity had been stripped away in the space of a few hours. The twins, thankfully, remained largely oblivious. Their school had shielded them effectively, and none of their classmates seemed aware of the online furor. But that protection would not last forever. That evening, there was a knock at her door. She opened it expecting Dorothy or possibly Bennett. Instead, she found a woman she recognized from photographs. Tall, elegant, blonde hair swept into a perfect chignon. Designer clothes that probably cost more than Nora's monthly rent. Eyes that assessed and dismissed in a single glance. Miranda Wells. "You must be her," Miranda said without preamble. "The woman who has been meeting with Bennett." Nora kept her expression neutral. "Can I help you?" "I doubt it. But I thought we should have a conversation. Woman to woman. About what?" "About what you are doing." Miranda's smile did not reach her eyes. Appearing now, after all these years. With convenient children and a sympathetic story. The timing is remarkably fortunate, would you not say? Nora felt her anger rise but kept her voice steady. "I am not sure what you are implying." "I am not implying anything. I am stating plainly that Bennett Aldrich is one of the wealthiest men in the country. And you are a ride-share driver living in a working-class apartment building. The math is not difficult." "Let me be very clear," Nora said quietly. "I have not asked Bennett for anything. Not money. Not support. Nothing. I raised my children alone for 7 years because I believed he had abandoned us. I would have continued raising them alone if fate had not put him in my car last week." "How noble," Miranda said dryly. "It is not noble. It is simply the truth. And the truth is that you were his lover 8 years ago. That you had his children. That you kept them secret until the moment he became successful enough to be worth pursuing." "I kept nothing secret. I tried to tell him about the pregnancy. I was prevented from reaching him. There were people who—" Nora stopped herself. She did not owe this woman explanations. Did not need to justify her history to someone who had already decided on a narrative. "I think you should leave," she said. "I will leave when I have said what I came to say." Miranda's composure cracked slightly. "I have resources. Connections. If you are trying to manipulate Bennett for financial gain, I will find out. And I will expose you." Nora stepped forward, closing the distance between them. Miranda instinctively stepped back. "I have worked 2 jobs for 7 years to provide for my children. I have sacrificed my career, my dreams, my entire life for them. I do not need Bennett Aldrich's money. I do not want Bennett Aldrich's money. What I want is for my children to have a relationship with their father. That is all." Miranda studied her for a long moment. Something shifted in her expression. Uncertainty, perhaps. Or the beginning of doubt about her own assumptions. "Bennett ended things with me," she said finally. Her voice was quieter now. Less aggressive. "Because of you. Because of your children. I did not ask him to do that. No. He decided on his own." Miranda laughed bitterly. "That is what bothers me most. I spent 18 months trying to become important to him. Attending every event. Meeting every obligation. And in 5 days, you undid all of it just by existing. I am sorry, Nora said. And she meant it. Genuinely. Miranda blinked, apparently surprised by the sincerity. Whatever was between you and Bennett, Nora continued, that is between you and him. I am not competing with you. I am not trying to replace you. I am just trying to figure out what is best for my children. The silence that followed was different from before. Less hostile. He looks at you differently, Miranda said quietly. I saw photographs from the museum. Before the tabloids got them. The way he looks at you. He never looked at me that way. Nora did not know how to respond to that. Did not even know if she wanted to. Goodbye, Ms. Wells, she said finally. I hope you find what you are looking for. It was not with Bennett. But I hope you find it somewhere. Miranda seemed on the verge of saying something else. Then she simply nodded and walked away, her heels clicking on the hallway floor. Nora closed the door and leaned against it, exhausted by the confrontation. Another complication. Another reminder that Bennett's world operated by different rules than her own. Rules where status and appearances mattered more than substance. Where relationships were transactions and vulnerability was weakness. She did not belong in that world. Had never wanted to. But her children might. If Bennett remained part of their lives, they would be exposed to it. The wealth. The privilege. The constant scrutiny. Was that what she wanted for them? Was she even the one who got to decide? The phone rang. Bennett. I heard Miranda came to see you, he said. His voice was tight with controlled anger. I am so sorry. She had no right. How did you know? She called me afterward. To tell me that she had assessed the situation and determined you were not a threat. A threat? Nora repeated. Her words. Not mine. I told her that if she ever approached you or the children again, I would make sure every door in Denver society closed to her permanently. You do not have to protect me from your ex-girlfriends. She is not my ex-girlfriend. She was. A convenient arrangement. Nothing more. She seemed quite invested for something that was nothing more. Bennett was quiet for a moment. That is fair. I allowed her to believe the relationship was more than it was. I was careless with her feelings because I did not have any of my own to risk. That was wrong. Nora absorbed this admission. The willingness to accept responsibility. The absence of deflection or excuse. She came here because she was hurting, Nora said. Not because she was threatening. You are more generous than I would be. I know what it feels like to lose someone. To believe you had something real and discover you were wrong. Silence on the line. Heavy with understanding. Nora, Bennett said finally. This week has been. A lot. The media attention. Miranda. The constant crisis management. I am trying to shield you and the children from the worst of it, but I know it is affecting your life. It is. Would you consider an alternative? Temporarily. What kind of alternative? I have a property outside the city. About 45 minutes into the foothills. Gated community. Complete privacy. No media access. No photographers waiting outside. You want us to move to your property. Not permanently. Just until the attention dies down. The house is fully furnished. 6 bedrooms. Large yard. Excellent internet for remote schooling if needed. Nora closed her eyes. The offer was generous. Practical even. But accepting it would mean surrendering the independence she had fought so hard to maintain. I cannot uproot the twins from their school, she said. They have routines. Friends. Most schools offer remote learning options now, and the property is close enough that once things settle, they could return to their normal schedule. This is a lot to ask. I know. And I would not ask if I saw another way to protect them. But there were photographers outside your apartment building today. My security team turned them away, but they will be back. Tomorrow. The next day. Until this story stops being interesting. She thought about the curious looks from neighbors. The whispered conversations. The way her carefully constructed anonymity had been stripped away. She thought about Oliver and Willa. Their innocent faces. Their trust that she would keep them safe. I need to talk to the twins, she said. This is their decision too. Of course, Bennett agreed immediately. Whatever they want. Whatever you all decide. That night, gathered on the living room couch, Nora explained the situation as simply as she could. There are people with cameras who want to take pictures of us because of your father. We can stay here and try to avoid them. Or we can go stay at a house in the mountains for a while until they get bored and go away. The twins exchanged their silent look. Would Dad be there? Willa asked. Sometimes, Nora said. The house belongs to him. But he would only visit when we wanted him to. Is there space for my telescope? Oliver wanted to know. Lots of space. Less light pollution too. You would see more stars. And my art supplies, Willa added. There is room for everything. Another silent consultation between the siblings. I vote yes, Oliver announced. Being followed by photographers sounds inefficient and stressful. Me too, Willa agreed. And I want to see more stars. Nora looked at her children. Her brave, adaptable, resilient children who had already weathered so many changes in their young lives. Are you sure? She asked. This is a big decision. We are sure, Oliver said. His voice carried the weight of careful consideration. You always tell us that when things get hard, we have to find solutions instead of just complaining. This is a solution. Out of the mouths of babes, Nora thought. Or in this case, out of the mouths of 7-year-olds who had learned practicality from their practical mother. All right, she said. I will call your father. The move happened quickly. Too quickly for Nora's comfort. Within 2 days, a team of professionals had packed their belongings, arranged transportation, and installed them in a house that took her breath away despite her best efforts to remain unmoved. The property was stunning. Modern architecture nestled among towering pines, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the mountains. The kind of home that appeared in magazines, all clean lines and natural materials and spaces that flowed into each other with deliberate grace. The twins raced from room to room with uninhibited joy, discovering a workshop space that Bennett had hastily outfitted for Oliver's projects, an art studio with natural light for Willa's creations. Details that revealed thought and consideration rather than mere expenditure. You did this in 2 days, Nora said, standing in the center of the great room while the twins explored. I made calls, Bennett replied. Explained what was needed. People responded. People with very specialized skills and very flexible schedules. That is one advantage of resources. He met her eyes. I know it makes you uncomfortable. The wealth. The ability to make things happen quickly. But right now, it is serving to protect our children. Can you accept it for that reason if no other? Our children. The phrase still caught her off guard every time he used it. For now, she said. But we need to establish some ground rules. Name them. This is temporary. A few weeks at most. Agreed. You maintain your own residence. You visit only by invitation. Of course. The twins' routines remain as consistent as possible. School, activities, bedtimes. No disruption just because the setting has changed. I would expect nothing less. And Nora hesitated. I need my own space. My own life. I am not becoming a guest in your world. You are not a guest, Bennett said quietly. This is your home for as long as you need it. I am the visitor. Always. She studied him, looking for signs of the controlling CEO who had once prioritized his company above everything. She found instead a man actively diminishing his own authority, deferring to her judgment, making himself small in service of something larger. It unsettled her. Not because she doubted his sincerity, but because she had spent 8 years constructing an image of him as the villain. That image had been simple, comforting in its clarity. This reality was far more complicated. Thank you, she said finally, for all of this. Thank you for letting me help. The weeks that followed established a new rhythm. Not the chaotic juggling of Nora's old life, but something calmer. More spacious. The twins thrived in the mountain environment, their schoolwork submitted remotely while they explored the property's acres of forest and meadow. Bennett visited regularly, always by invitation, always respecting the boundaries Nora had established. He helped Oliver construct an increasingly sophisticated weather station. He sat for hours while Willa painted his portrait, remaining still despite what must have been significant discomfort. He read bedtime stories when asked, his deep voice lending gravity to tales of dragons and adventures. And gradually, almost imperceptibly, something began to shift. It happened in small moments. A shared laugh over dinner when Oliver made an unexpectedly sophisticated joke about quantum mechanics. A quiet conversation on the deck after the twins were asleep, watching stars emerge above the mountain ridges. A brush of hands when reaching for the same coffee cup. Eyes meeting across a room and holding for a beat too long. Nora felt the shift and resisted it. Fought against it with the same determination she had applied to survival during those 7 hard years. But some forces are stronger than determination. One evening, nearly 3 weeks into their stay, she found herself alone with Bennett on the deck. The twins were asleep. The night was clear and cold, stars scattered across the sky in numbers she never saw from the city. A fire crackled in the outdoor hearth, casting dancing shadows. They had been sitting in comfortable silence for some time when Bennett spoke. "I never thanked you properly," he said. "For raising them. For everything you did alone. You did thank me. Words." He shook his head. "Words are not enough for what you accomplished. I see the people they are becoming, Nora. The kindness. The intelligence. The resilience. That is all you." "It is mostly them," she said. "I just tried to stay out of their way. You did far more than that. You built a foundation. Values. Security. Everything they needed to become who they are." Nora was quiet for a moment, watching the fire. "There were times," she admitted, "when I was not sure I could do it. Times when the exhaustion and the fear felt bigger than my ability to cope. But you kept going. What choice did I have? They depended on me. You could have given up. Some people do." She turned to look at him. His face was shadowed in the firelight, the strong lines of his jaw and brow familiar even after so many years. "I thought about you," she said quietly, "more than I wanted to admit. Even when I hated you. Even when I told myself you were worthless. Some part of me kept wondering what you would think if you could see what I was doing. And now that I can see." She looked away. "I do not know. This is all happening very fast." "I know," he said. "And I am not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know. What you built. Who you became. It is extraordinary, Nora. You are extraordinary." The words hung in the cold night air between them, heavy with meaning neither was quite ready to name. "I should go to bed," Nora said, standing abruptly. "Early morning tomorrow." "Of course." Bennett stood as well. "Good night, Nora." "Good night." She was at the door when he spoke again. "Nora." She paused without turning around. "I know I said I would not expect anything. And I meant it. But I need you to know. Whatever happens between us. Whatever you decide. These weeks have been the best of my life. Getting to know Oliver and Willa. Being part of something real. I did not know I was capable of feeling this way." She stood motionless for a long moment. Then, without turning, she said, "I know. I feel it too." Then she went inside, closing the door gently behind her. In her room that night, Nora lay awake for a long time. The admission she had made echoed in her mind. "I feel it too." Words she had not planned to say. Words that changed something fundamental about the careful boundaries she had constructed. She was falling for him again. Despite everything. Despite the years of anger and grief. Despite the scars that would never fully heal. Her heart was reaching toward his with the same stubborn hope that had once let her believe in a future they might build together. It terrified her. And underneath the terror was something else. Something warm and fragile and dangerously close to joy. The 3 weeks Nora had originally agreed to stretched into 6. The media attention died down as Bennett had predicted. Other scandals emerged to capture public interest. The photographers abandoned their posts outside her apartment building, moving on to more productive hunting grounds. But still they stayed. The twins flourished in the mountain environment. Oliver's weather station had become a sophisticated data-gathering operation, his observations feeding into a school science project that his teachers described as high school-level work. Willa had filled notebooks with sketches and paintings, her art taking on new depth and complexity inspired by the natural beauty surrounding them. And Nora. Nora had begun something she had not expected. It started with a conversation with Bennett about his company's diagnostic technology. A casual question about technical specifications led to a deeper discussion about the engineering challenges involved. She found herself offering insights drawn from knowledge she had thought long buried. He listened with the same intensity he had shown during those late nights at Vertex 8 years ago, asking questions that pushed her thinking in new directions. The next day, he sent her a link to an online certification program in biomedical engineering. "Just in case you are interested," his message said. No pressure. She was interested. More than interested. As she began working through the coursework, she felt something awakening that had been dormant for 7 years. Her analytical mind engaging with problems that actually challenged it. Her creativity finding expression in technical solutions rather than just in survival strategies. It was not a return to who she had been. It was something new. Something that incorporated everything she had learned during those difficult years. 6 months later, she accepted a part-time position with a medical technology startup. Remote work, flexible hours, based on her newly updated credentials and a portfolio of ideas she had developed during her months of study. The company was founded by 2 women who valued work-life balance as much as innovation. Perfect for a single mother rebuilding her professional identity. Except she was not entirely a single mother anymore. Bennett had become a constant presence in their lives. Not living with them. They maintained that boundary. But visiting regularly, present for milestones and ordinary moments alike. He had learned to cook breakfast. To braid Willa's hair. To discuss orbital mechanics with Oliver without oversimplifying. He had learned to be a father. And he had done it by watching Nora, by following her lead, by accepting that she knew things about their children that he might never fully understand. The twins had noticed the change. Both in him and in the dynamic between their parents. "Mom," Willa said one evening as Nora tucked her in. "Are you and Dad going to get married?" The question caught Nora off guard. Where did that come from? Sophie's parents got divorced and then they got UN divorced. They had another wedding and everything. UN divorced, Nora repeated, smiling. "You know what I mean." Nora sat on the edge of the bed, considering her answer carefully. "Your dad and I were never married," she said. "So we cannot get UN divorced. But you could get married now," Willa pressed. "You like each other. I can tell. Liking each other is not the same as being ready to get married. But you love each other too. Do you not?" The directness of children. Always cutting straight to the heart of things. "I'm figuring out how I feel," Nora admitted. "It is complicated, sweetheart. There is a lot of history between me and your dad. Good things and hard things. We are still learning how to be around each other. Oliver says you look at Dad the way Mrs. Chen looks at Mr. Chen. And they are definitely in love. Your brother is very observant. So it is true." Nora leaned down and kissed her daughter's forehead. "What is true," she said, "is that I love you and Oliver more than anything in the world. And that your dad loves you too. Whatever happens between him and me, that will never change." Willa seemed to accept this, settling back against her pillows with a thoughtful expression. "I hope you figure it out," she said. "The complicated stuff. I think it would be nice if we were all together. For real." Nora turned off the light and stood in the doorway for a moment, watching her daughter drift towards sleep. "I hope so too," she whispered. "More than you know." Spring arrived at the mountain house with an explosion of wildflowers. The meadow below the property transformed into a carpet of purple and yellow and white, and the twins spent hours cataloging species and pressing samples between the pages of heavy books. Nora stood on the deck one evening, watching the sunset paint the mountains in shades of gold and rose. Behind her, she could hear Bennett helping Oliver with math homework at the kitchen table. Willa's voice drifted down from her art studio, singing along to whatever music she was painting to. Ordinary sounds. Family sounds. The kind of sounds she had dreamed about during those lonely years of struggle. Dorothy had visited the previous weekend, surveying the changed landscape of Nora's life with knowing eyes. "You look happy," the older woman had observed. "Genuinely happy. I was not sure I would ever see that. I was not sure I would ever feel it," Nora admitted. "And Bennett. He is." Nora had paused, searching for words. "Different. Better. Or maybe just finally becoming who he was supposed to be all along. And you too. We are finding our way. Dorothy had smiled at that. The knowing smile of someone who could see what Nora was still afraid to name. Now, watching the last light fade from the sky, Nora felt Bennett's presence behind her before she heard his footsteps. Math crisis resolved, he reported, coming to stand beside her. Oliver has a new theory about imaginary numbers that he wants to discuss with you later. He always has theories. He gets that from you. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the stars begin to emerge. There is something I want to tell you, Nora said finally. Something I have been thinking about for a while. Bennett turned to look at her, his expression open and waiting. I have been so angry at you, she said. For so long. Even after I understood about Catherine. Even after I knew you had been manipulated. The anger was still there. Deep down. I know, he said quietly. You had every right. Maybe. But I have realized something. The anger was not really about you anymore. It was about what I had lost. The life I thought I would have. The person I thought I would become. I blamed you because it was easier than accepting that sometimes terrible things happen and there is no one to blame. He said nothing, letting her continue. These past months, she went on, watching you with the children. Watching you become the father they deserve. I felt the anger starting to fade. Not because you earned forgiveness. Not because you proved yourself. But because I realized that holding on to it was hurting me more than it was hurting you. Nora. Let me finish, she said. Please. He nodded, waiting. I do not know what we are, she said. I do not know what we are becoming. But I know that I do not want to be angry anymore. I want to see what happens when I let that go. When I let myself feel whatever this is between us. She turned to face him, meeting his eyes in the gathering darkness. I am not promising anything, she continued. I am not saying I forgive you or that we can have what we had before. I am just saying. I am willing to try. To see what might be possible. If you still want that. Bennett was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough with emotion. I have wanted that every day for 8 years. Even when I did not know what I had lost. There was always something missing. I know now it was you. And them. So we try, Nora said. Slowly. Carefully. Together. Together, he agreed. He reached for her hand. She let him take it. They stood there as the stars emerged above them, not speaking, not needing to. Two people at the end of a long journey, finally allowing themselves to imagine a destination. Behind them, through the windows, the twins continued their evening routines. Oliver's voice explaining his number theory to no one in particular. Willa's music still playing softly from upstairs. The sounds of a family taking shape. It was not the life Nora had imagined for herself at 27. It was something stranger and harder and more beautiful than anything she could have planned. And it was enough. More than enough. It was everything. 1 year later, on an October evening remarkably similar to the one when everything had begun, Nora found herself behind the wheel of her car. Not the rideshare Honda with its 187,000 miles, but a new vehicle Bennett had insisted on after the old one finally gave up. She was picking up dinner from the twins' favorite restaurant. A routine errand. Ordinary. Unremarkable. Except nothing was ordinary anymore. Oliver had started calling Bennett Dad 6 months ago. Casually at first, as if trying out the word. Then with increasing naturalness until it became simply what he said. Willa had made the switch earlier, her emotional certainty outpacing her brother's analytical caution. Nora and Bennett had married quietly in spring. Just the four of them plus Dorothy, standing in the meadow behind the house while wildflowers bloomed around them. No photographers. No publicity. Just a family becoming official. She still worked for the medical technology startup, her role expanding as she proved her value. Bennett had restructured his own responsibilities, delegating more to his leadership team so he could be present for the moments that mattered. School plays. Soccer games. Bedtime stories. He had kept every promise he made. Not through grand gestures but through consistent small acts of presence and attention. And Catherine Marsh. The woman who had stolen 8 years from all of them. Nora had learned through a professional contact that Catherine had been dismissed from her subsequent position for similar manipulative behavior. She had drifted through several companies since, her reputation preceding her, doors closing wherever she went. There was no dramatic confrontation. No moment of vengeance or vindication. Just the quiet justice of consequences finding their natural course. Nora did not think about Catherine often. The woman had become irrelevant. A footnote in a story that had moved far beyond her petty machinations. What mattered was now. This life they had built together. This family that had emerged from pain and transformed into something whole. She pulled into the parking lot of the restaurant and was about to get out when her phone buzzed. A text from Bennett. The kids want to know if you can pick up extra garlic bread. Oliver has a new theory about why it is superior to regular bread. Details to follow at dinner. She smiled, typing a quick response. Tell him to prepare his arguments. I have counterpoints. His reply came immediately. I missed you today. 3 words. Simple. Ordinary. Yet they still had the power to warm something deep inside her. I missed you too, she typed back. Home soon. She got out of the car and walked toward the restaurant entrance. Just a woman picking up dinner for her family. Nothing special about the scene. But everything was special. Every moment was precious. She knew that now in a way she could not have understood before. Having lost so much had taught her the value of what remained. She thought about that rainy Friday night, 1 year ago. The passenger who had slid into her backseat without looking up from his phone. The voice she had recognized instantly despite 8 years of silence. She had thought it was just another Uber ride. She had been wrong. It was the ride that brought her home. The restaurant was warm and bright, filled with the sounds of families and couples and friends sharing meals together. Nora placed her order and waited, watching the ordinary human drama unfold around her. A young couple arguing quietly in the corner. An elderly pair sharing a dessert, their hands intertwined on the table. A single mother juggling a toddler and a diaper bag while trying to pay for her food. Nora had been that mother once. Exhausted. Overwhelmed. Holding everything together through sheer force of will. She was not that mother anymore. But she remembered. Would always remember. Her order was ready. She gathered the bags, left a generous tip, and headed back to her car. The drive home wound through foothills painted gold by the setting sun. Mountains rose in the distance, their peaks still touched with the last light of day. It was beautiful in a way that never stopped surprising her, this landscape she had come to call home. When she pulled into the driveway, she could see them through the window. Bennett and the twins at the kitchen table, heads bent over some project. Oliver was gesturing emphatically, clearly in the middle of explaining something. Willa was laughing. Bennett was listening with the focused attention he had once reserved only for board meetings and investor calls. Family. Imperfect and complicated and absolutely, irreplaceably precious. Nora gathered the food and walked toward the door. Before she could reach it, it swung open. Willa stood in the doorway, bouncing with impatience. Mom. Finally. Dad says we cannot start the garlic bread argument until you are here to referee. I am here, Nora said, stepping inside. Let the debates begin. The kitchen was warm and bright, filled with the smell of food and the sound of voices. Oliver launched immediately into his thesis on garlic bread, complete with a diagram he had drawn on a napkin. Bennett watched with barely concealed amusement. Willa interrupted periodically with objections that were mostly designed to provoke her brother. Ordinary chaos. Beautiful chaos. The kind of chaos Nora had dreamed about during those long years of struggle. She set down the food and took her place at the table. Her place. Among her family. In the life they had built together from the wreckage of what might have been. Oliver was still talking about bread. Willa was still objecting. Bennett caught her eye across the table and smiled. I love you, he mouthed silently. I love you too, she mouthed back. And in that moment, surrounded by the people she loved most in the world, Nora felt something she had stopped believing was possible. She felt complete. The past could not be undone. The years of struggle and loneliness had shaped her in ways that would never entirely fade. The pain of what she had endured was part of her now, woven into the fabric of who she had become. But so was this. The joy. The connection. The belonging. She had thought that night in the rain was just another Uber ride. A random passenger. A chance encounter. Instead, it was the beginning of everything. The story continues, as all stories do. There would be more challenges ahead. More moments of doubt and difficulty. No life, however blessed, is exempt from pain. But whatever came next, they would face it together. As a family. As partners. As two people who had found their way back to each other against impossible odds. And that was enough. More than enough. That was everything. If this story moved you, if you believe that healing is possible even after the deepest wounds, subscribe for more tales that explore the complicated beauty of love, forgiveness, and the families we build from the broken pieces of our lives. Some rides take us exactly where we need to go, even when we do not know the destination. Especially then.